we might hold kind of verbal questions until we get to the end, just in case they get answered along the way. So in terms of why we're doing it, it is an important time in BGANZ's evolution. It's for an organisation that was founded in 2004, we have I think got to a point where we have grown to over 130 member gardens and arboreta, but our capacity and we're blessed with a really engaged membership, but our capacity to kind of service that membership really has plateaued a bit with our current structure. So in terms of the strategic objectives, which I'll talk to shortly, it really is about requiring an arrangement, a structure which can attract more resources and be more effective in achieving those objectives. So effectively trying to make it a more sustainable organisation and set up for growth into the future. The proposed structure does, you'll see with proposing a board, it does broaden the skills base of the organisation. At the moment, it's been an organisation that has run on the goodwill of those who are contributing to it, but there hasn't been really kind of strategic selection of particular skill sets to help us achieve the objectives. This in many ways started with a recognition of the importance or the reliance we have on funding achieved through sponsorship, so things like Seasol or Augusta golf carts or other sponsors, and advice that we've received that as an organisation we will be far more attractive to sponsorship if we obtain deductible gift recipient status. So that is attractive to sponsors in terms of tax benefits when they sponsor an organisation with BGR status, and to achieve that there's certain governance arrangements that need to be put in place, and our current governance arrangement of being an incorporated association registered in the ACT doesn't achieve that, so we can't achieve the DGR status with our current incorporated association. And also recognising that we're an association that has membership through Australia and New Zealand, that having that arrangement in the ACT is really no longer appropriate. So it is a process where the council is recommending to members that we transition to a company limited by guarantee, and that the structure is meets all of the requirements of that company limited by guarantee structure. I think the other thing that council have been very focused on is that we are a member network. Any changes that we're proposing need to at least retain, but ideally enhance our ability to work for the benefit of members, to make member voices more easily heard, and so that's been a real focus for council right through. So just looking back, and as I said, council have been working on this for close to 2 years, over 18 months. We have strived to make it a process where the membership have had opportunities to have input into, particularly looking back to October 2020 with the BGANZ member workshop and survey. We had the survey and then followed it up. So you might remember Julia Watson facilitated that session in terms of feedback on the survey results. So it was really, reaching out to members to confirm to council, what is important to members at the moment. What do we want to keep doing or do more of, and what is less important to members, just to guide guide the process. From that, we did refresh the strategic objectives, which I'll go to on the next slide. And we sought some assistance from Leonie at Strategic Matters, just guiding us through that kind of strategic review process. From there, we explored different governance structure options, which I'll talk to today as well. And we've also been seeking legal advice from Tisha Legal. Yoni at Tisha Legal has been giving us advice right the way through, where we've checked in with the draft constitution just to make sure that everything is in order from a legal perspective. So just running through the revised, refreshed strategic objectives that Council developed, and starting with that first one, which is very much about supporting members and regional groups. That that one of the key objectives is that the membership feels valued, and that the work that the organisation does is relevant to those members. And that with that, success with that, we see strong regional groups, growing, connecting better, accessible forums and for networking and other activities. We've already seen some great initiatives with that, in many ways assisted by the, the increase in online activity. So BGANZ and BGANZ being significantly more active over the last 18 months, which has been great to see. Another key thing, the second one, is about BGANZ assisting the growth of capacity and skills within our network, within our botanic gardens. And this is probably an area we've recognised for a long time as an important role for BGANZ, but it is an area where additional resourcing is needed to allow us to work more strongly in that professional development and capacity building area. So it kind of talks to where BGANZ have got to at the moment, and really our lack of ability to service that important objective in the organisation. Another one is about our role in advocacy and I guess raising the awareness of Botanic Gardens. We've had great initiatives like Botanic Gardens Day and things like that are continuing. But it is, I think, a lot of our communication is internal within our network. So it's about, again, additional resources and additional skills will help us be better able to advocate, to communicate with our communities the important role that Botanic Gardens have in plant conservation, but in many other areas as well, in terms of connecting people with plants and that whole important relationship. At the heart of it, number 4 there, in terms of building and maintaining partnerships, we have, I think, over the last probably 5 or 6 years with the organisation, really seen some growth in partnerships and sponsorships. So these aren't always financial. It might be, for example, strengthening our relationship with Botanic Gardens Conservation International, BGCI, really having us seen as the key botanic garden network in the region, but also some partners who might be financial partners. So really strengthening our brand and our reputation as a reputable organisation and something that they want to be associated with. So we've had some successes with sponsorships, but some of them haven't been enduring, and I think that is an indication of, I guess, where we're at and the need to go to the next level to retain those sponsors, but also attract more. And then the last one, really importantly, is ensuring that that the organisation moves in a direction which does create a structure that's more effective and efficient for delivering services, but also more sustainable. So it's been I think, a really productive period for council over the last 12 to 18 months with a lot of contributors, which has been fantastic. I think it hasn't always been that way, where a lot has fallen to, the president of the day and Eamon as chief executive and a small number of others. So it's really about having focus on the ability to grow, the ability to service better, the ability to, with more resource, to indeed have potentially some additional paid positions to help us not be as reliant on volunteer effort, given that everyone on council has day jobs as well. So it's just about not burning out the contribution of those who are involved. So council did do work with Strategic Matters on reviewing the vision and the mission. We have sort of some final draft words here, which I'll read out, but we will take these, assuming this all proceeds, to the new board to just finalise. But the vision being a world where gardens inspire and are valued by everyone, and our mission being to build a botanic garden network across Australia and New Zealand, which facilitates knowledge sharing, professional development, partnerships and advocacy for the benefit of all gardens and their role in plant conservation for the benefit of people and the planet. So still a bit of wordsmithing, but you can see there that the mission does very much pick up on all those key focus areas within the strategic objectives. So just moving into the structure and looking at a way to explain it would be that it is a two-tier structure. So we have what we're calling a BGANZ member committee, which has a BGANZ board sitting above it. So I'm going to go to the BGANZ member committee first, just looking at that first tier. And with that member committee structure, you can see that it is made up of the existing regional groups, so two groups or two representatives effectively from New Zealand, a representative from each of Australia's states and territories, so up to 8 there, retaining a Council of Heads of Australian Botanic Garden, a charbag representative on the member committee, having 2 positions for BGANZ co-opted members, and then retaining what you might have heard referred to previously as professional groups. We're calling them specialist groups in the new constitution. So at the moment, BGEN and BCALM, but also place for additional groups. We're only showing one box there, but if there were other specialist areas that formed groups into the future, then there's no restriction within the constitution for there to be more than 3 specialist groups. So together that group forms the BGANZ member committee, and council did through this process look at a range of different ways to cut and dice the current arrangements, but after much consideration we came back to thinking, well, we have got some really successful regional groups that are firing really well, and some really active and effective specialist groups at the moment. So let's not kind of break what's not broken. So we ended up coming back to retaining this structure with the BGANZ member committee. That committee will have a chair, a member committee chair, and you'll see shortly that that's an important role, along with another member from this member committee. So there will be two positions, the member committee chair and another person from the member committee, who will both become members of the board. So those 2 roles are the link between this member committee and the board that sits above it. So going to that board structure sitting above the member committee, and then we'll put the two pieces together. You can see here that it is made up of up to 9 positions, up to 9 board members. 4 of them must be, well, 4 of them are BGANZ member elected positions in blue there, and 5 are skills-based board members. And I guess this is the key part of the shift or the injection of new skills that we're seeking to bring into the organisation, is that we've identified, and you can see there, notional areas of specialisation, strategic planning skills, skills in partnership and development or fundraising, marketing and communication, governance and risk management, as well as financial management, that for us to evolve, we're really seeking to develop the board that as with, I guess, usual board structure, that you have a skills matrix that you fill to make sure that an effective board has expertise from all of these areas. Of course, if there's other areas which aren't covered by the makeup of the board, then there is the option to bring that expertise in, whether it's pro bono or it's paid consultancy or that sort of thing. So just looking at those orange boxes, so I mentioned from the member committee, the BGANZ member committee, there are two people who come up to be members of the board, 2 of those BGANZ member positions, and then there's 2 other BGANZ member positions that don't necessarily have to be members of the member committee to be on the board. And so those 4 positions are elected positions so they're elected by the membership, whereas the skills-based board members are appointed. And I'll go through the mechanisms in a couple of slides about those 2 different ways of establishing the board. From those 9, up to 9 board member positions, there would be a chair and a deputy chair. So they would be appointed from within that 9 through a vote by the board. So another way to look at that structure. So we have the BGANZ board at the top, with the BGANZ member committee underneath, which effectively is made up of the regional and specialist groups, along with Charbag and a couple of co-opted members. There's a couple of bullet points there in the yellow orange box, which are really guidelines. It would be for the board to finalise that arrangement, but certainly looking, as we currently have, that each regional and specialist group has a convener, and that there would be, let's say, quarterly reports that go to the board via the BGANZ member committee chair. So that important link of information in both directions between the board and the member committee, and also that thinking also that it would be important perhaps to have an annual gathering of the conveners of all of those groups with the BGANZ board, again to strengthen that communication. As I've said, council have seen that two-way communication is really critical for the success of this new structure. So in terms of just exploring the different responsibilities, so the board, as with any classical board in terms of its responsibilities, has that overall governance, strategic direction responsibility, an increased focus on fundraising and partnerships. I think what we've found at the moment is it's been quite a handful for council who might be active in convening one of the regional groups or active in driving a specialist group, to also be active in cold calling sponsors or that sort of thing. So the board would be tasked with that focus. Also bringing stronger financial kind of management, governance and accountability into the structure. And those I guess those roles are all kind of brought together in terms of the constitutional wording, which we've worked on, and the draft is available for you to look through. The member committee sitting below that, as I say, is continuing the successes that we've already got with some really strong regional groups, but hopefully prompting some new regional groups to emerge through improved networking opportunities and continuing the good work of the specialist groups. But also, coming back to the point of the aspiration to generate more resources, it's really about a lot of the initiatives that the specialist groups are driving, where we'd like to provide more support, which does require more resources than we have at the moment. So really working very much hand in hand with that. And as I've mentioned, that member's voice on the board being really critical. So the outcomes that we're seeing that the member committee will provide is continuing the fostering and the coordination and engagement by members. So seeing that there is a strong identity as a network for all member gardens, as a member of that network, continuing to connect through online forums and online workshops, but also the face-to-face biennial congress. The advocacy that we've mentioned in terms of really building the profile of the importance of botanic gardens in a range of things, whether it's plant conservation outcomes or community connections and health and wellbeing initiatives, and the range of other things that come from our social and cultural programs and education programs. And as that representation to the board on the regional and specialist groups. And all of this is really taken from the documents, the member committee regional and specialist group Word document that is on the website and was also posted out in the recent email. So again, I'm going back to the structure of the member committee. So I think I've pretty well talked through this already in terms of the there would be a nominated rep from each state-based regional group, if there is indeed one. There may be some states or territories that choose not to nominate a representative, so it's up to 8 from New Zealand and up to 8 from Australia and 2 from New Zealand, and the current specialist groups. And as I mentioned, additional specialist groups can be added as required. A charbag rep, 2 co-opted reps, and a chair and deputy chair would be nominated and appointed from the membership, as well as a secretary. So we think that the functioning of that will require some secretarial support. Now, how often the member committee gets together, it may be a bit less than the current council schedule. It may be a quarterly meeting, but that details to be finalised. And the details of that are in that member committee policy doc, as I've just mentioned. Looking at the board structure now, so some of the key things, and these are all stipulated within the proposed constitution. So a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 9 board members. At least 50% of those must be BGANZ members. So you might recall we had 4 blue boxes, which were the BGANZ member elected board members. What this is saying is that if you did have 9 board members, then at least one of the yellow skills-based board members would need to be a BGANZ member as well. So we felt it was important that the board retain at least a 50% or majority, what effectively would be a majority of BGANZ members on the board. Just trying to look at the correct balance of bringing in external skill sets, but retaining a strong voice of the membership on the board. So that's the mechanism that we've put in place there. I've mentioned up to 5 skills-based appointed positions, and that they can be either a member or a non-member. The 4 elected BGANZ members, so there are some constraints around that, so a maximum of 50%. Effectively, if we had the 4, so no more than 2 from Australian Capital City Gardens, at least 1 from New Zealand member, which means that there is room on the board for a non-capital city board member. So again, giving the opportunity for voice from regional or other gardens that aren't, the larger gardens. We're looking to establish the initial board prior to the board coming into operation, so to effectively fill the initial board, which is a slightly different process to what would then be guided by the Constitution once we get to the organisation's first AGM, assuming this is adopted by members. So that initial board, so the up to 9 positions, we are looking to retain some continuity. So myself and Wolfgang Bob from Christchurch have agreed to continue on the initial board, and then there are 2 vacancies which would be drawn from the current BGANZ Council, so that there is good continuity in this initial board. And then these other 5 vacancies would be filled by appointment. So myself, Wolfgang and Eamon looking to effectively recruit those positions, and pleasingly there is already some interest from externals and some individuals within Botanic Gardens that have that do meet those kind of skill requirements. So the establishment of this initial board is different to, as I say, once this board's in place, we're looking for that to be effective from the 1st of July 2022, and then run through for approximately 18 months to the first AGM, and then it would be the regular mechanisms within the Constitution for the replacement or turnover of board members. So just looking at the timeline, we're up to here, November the 23rd. We are looking to release a survey following this meeting to give you an opportunity to let us know your thoughts on what's being proposed, remembering that a lot of the detail is also within the documents. There's an FAQ, frequently asked questions, document that's been developed by Council, which is a really good resource. There's the proposed Constitution, which is a pretty dry read, but very important nonetheless. And with the Constitution, we've tried to retain a number of the existing elements from our current Constitution. So where we haven't needed to change something, we've strived to retain it. So really only making changes where we think there's improvement needed. And there's a 3rd key document, which is the member committee regional and specialist group document, which is a document that really guides the activity, or the process, the mechanisms for the member committee. So that's a document which is referred to in the Constitution but sits outside it. So it does mean that we can revise the mechanism of that member committee, make tweaks and improvements as we go along without needing to go back to adjust the constitution and put a full motion to members. So we're looking to have the survey open for 2 weeks, so till the 7th of December, and then for council to consider that feedback, and to the real mechanism for making the change would be at a special general meeting. So we will call that for around March, April, and at that meeting, ahead of that meeting, you would receive some formally worded proposals for voting on at the meeting. So you'll get those proposals ahead of the meeting to consider, but you know, without having the words developed, they would certainly include winding up the incorporated association, transitioning to the company limited by guarantee, and adopting the proposed constitution would be part of those proposals. If that gets supported with a member vote at that time, and we need, I think it's 75% or more of those who are attending that SGM, according to our current constitution, then it would be adopted, and we would then proceed to fill the initial board structure, so that by the 1st of July, the new board is ready to go, and the new company limited by guarantee commences, which would take us through to having our first AGM about 18 months or so after, looking at, it's a bit less than 18 months, but October 2023 as a notional timing for that first one. So really, as I've mentioned, more information available on the website. It includes the constitution and the governance policy, the FAQ, as well as the survey will be emailed out shortly. And I'm starting to repeat myself now, so I'll stop sharing the screen. But that is the last slide. So I'll just go to that, and then I'll be able to see folk as well. So did we get anything coming through in the chat? Thanks, Wolfgang. We wish to address today, or?
Yeah, we had a couple of mentions. So the first one was from John, on suggesting that we could mention the specialist groups BCOM and BGANZ in the strategic objectives section. So specifically, I guess that's an easy fix. Meg Hurst, she suggested, and there's been a bit of discussion about a future professional group that could navigate, or a future specialist group that could navigate plant seed material exchange across organisations with reference to quarantine and overseas and state federal legislation permits. And Emma and John have both suggested possibly it could be a subset of the collections management group. So probably could be some discussion around that. And then Liam suggested or asked, he assumes the board would have measurable KPIs to meet, and who would set the KPIs? Is the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Liam. And sorry, Emma, can you just mute? Thanks. The board would, as I anticipate, for the first period of their operation, would be establishing a business plan guided by the strategic objectives, reviewing if they're comfortable with those, and embedded within that would be KPIs. But so that it is important that the board is focused on the important things. Part of that process would be completing the registration, the DGR status, but that's probably something that won't take a lot of the board's energy. It's more of a legal process, but the KPIs would be set by the board as part of their strategic business planning process. Has anyone else on council got comments? And I guess the other thing is, out of this process of talking with members, you know, there may be things that we haven't thought of. That's very much, you know, welcome those ideas, and there may be things we haven't got answers to today. So that's part of providing the opportunity with the survey as well, to seek any of that once you've had a bit of time to think about it, and, you know, ideas might come up that you haven't got now. And I guess going back to Meg Hurst's comment, certainly the membership committee structure means that we can add additional specialist groups if they emerge as being areas that we want to focus on. That's really driven by the membership and the needs of the networks. And Damien's made a comment about Damien Wrigley, opportunities to engage with First Nations peoples. So it's really about what, and that's a really good point in terms of what would be the mechanism to make sure that that's happening. That's a really good point. So I think that's one for council to take on. Thank you.
Possibly even in the first iteration of a board, Chris. Indeed,
yeah. Yeah, and council have talked about having diversity principles applying to, you know, the new board's makeup. That's important in terms of cultural and gender and overall diversity.
Yep.
Any other questions? That's all we really had to present. Any other comments from council? We don't have to go to 1:30.
Chris, Leonie here. Just some thoughts around those KPIs and perhaps new parts of committee focus. I mean, there would be an opportunity, I would have hoped, annually for the board and for the member committee to meet. And part of those conversations could be around strategic KPIs and directions and new initiatives and best ways for the board to be able to assist the committee and vice versa. So I think that opportunity there about setting KPIs and getting everybody on the same page so we're all rowing up the same river, you know, that could happen quite easily through that workshop approach that you would normally do through strategic planning implementation anyway. So for me, I think that there is a mechanism already in place to use.
Great, thanks, Leonie. And I think, as I said, the importance of making sure that it's not a top-heavy board that's directing the membership to do stuff that they don't feel is valuable. So it's very much a two-way conversation. So, you know, exactly through the mechanisms that you're explaining, Leonie.
Yep. That's right. At the end of the day, the board is there to assist effectively its stakeholders, and they are the committee and the BGANZ membership. And so it should take direction from the committee and the membership.
Yep. Agreed. And that might be, you know, some of the first business of the board is to engage with the member committee. I agree, Leonie. I think it's a good point.
And I think there's an opportunity as well that with the first board that they are an appropriate membership. They do start the direction of a new company, and so having members on that board that have an understanding of BGANZ and of our business, I think is really important, as well as the specialist skills that they bring to the board, so that there is already an understanding and a connection with the committee and the membership. I think would be good.
Thanks, Leonie. And John, Wolfgang?
Yeah, just really wanted to, I suppose, ask those who aren't on the board at the moment or on the committee, you know, does it sort of all make sense? I mean, some of us have been spending the last, well, 2 years for some cases, you know, for me, whatever it is, 9 months being quite close to this. So just really wanted to get a sense from those that haven't, whether it sort of seems to make sense.
Great question. Anyone got any feedback to that now, or absolutely if it's not now, if there are parts of that structure that just didn't make sense to you, or equally here that it came across clearly, that's, you know, good to hear that as well. Any comments now? Okay. Don't know whether
Use
take that
use,
as
use your signage if you're using it, if you know where to find the buttons.
yeah. If it was clear, stick your thumb up.
Yes.
If it was a schmozzle, is there a thumbs down? I don't think
Is
there
there a thumbs down icon? There's not a thumbs down icon, Chris. There's a.
No, I think it's the surprised icon.
Oh, that one.
All right, you say that surprise. It almost looks scary, doesn't it? I'm running for it.
Okay. Well, there is the survey for response. So if the council are very much wanting to, I guess, hear your feedback before the special general meeting. It would be great to have a sense that the membership are feeling comfortable with this and see that the potential to take us, you know, in the growth of the organisation. Or if you have concerns, very much want to hear those as well. So, okay.
We're doing it for the membership. That's the whole point, isn't it? So we're not doing it for us, really.
All right. I sense we're just about ready to wrap up. So just reiterating, the resources are on the website to refer to, the draft constitution, etc. The survey will be sent out shortly. Thanks, Eamon and Helen and other council members who've contributed so much to the governance working group, Wolfgang and others and all the other subgroups. So council have been quite busy with this. So it's been a really great collective effort over the last few months. So thanks to everyone for your contributions there. So survey back by the 7th of December and a notice of the special general meeting to come early in the new year, looking at kind of March/April for that voting on the proposed changes. So thanks everyone.
Chris, thank you as well, and Eamon for, you know, driving us through that, because it's been a big piece of work. So well done for keeping it going.